After the pastor gave his message, my friend sort of nudged me and said, "Hey, Laura, do you believe in God?" Now, I'd never been to a church. I didn't know what an altar call was.
Okay.
I didn't know what the music playing was for, but I had a lot of chutzpah. I had a lot of nerve. So I said, yeah, of course I believe in God, which is not something that I had been taught growing up. But that day I went forward. She said, "You believe in God? Then go up there and pray with the pastor." I'm like, okay, why not?
Okay.
That was the first time that I ever heard the good news of Messiah. He didn't know I was Jewish.
What? The
pastor.
The pastor?
Yeah, I'm not even sure that my friend knew that I was Jewish.
Okay.
I didn't know that Jews weren't supposed to believe in Jesus. I didn't know who Jesus was.
Okay.
I had no background, not even a narrative of anti-Semitism.
Okay, so wait a second. You heard the gospel, the good
Yes.
news. You're 12 years old.
Yes.
And you accept it?
I said, why not? It sounded like a good deal. I could know God. I could
Right.
have a relationship with him. Why would I say no?
Okay, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but
Yeah.
that doesn't last long because sometimes the kids, they want to be like their peers and they want to do what their friends are doing. So what made this different from something I'm just doing what my friends are doing?
When he prayed with me, I knew it was true. I'd never read the Bible. I can't even explain, but it was like, this is real. Whatever just happened here, this is real.
Okay.
And all I knew is that I wanted to go back to that church and I wanted to learn more. So I went back home to my mother. I said, "Mom, guess what? I've become a Christian." I had no idea. That's when I found out Jews are really not supposed to believe in Jesus. So she called my grandparents, she called my father. The next week, they all trekked out to this church to see what these people had done to me because, you know, cults, California,
Right.
coming from New York, they wanted to know what was going on. But it was a small country Baptist church in Northern California. So they thought, oh, you know, she's just making a friend and this couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be a part of doing anything official, like
Okay.
driving me or going to services
Right.
or allowing me to do any official sacrament like baptism
Okay.
or anything else that the church did. But they said, "I want you to learn as much about Judaism as Christianity.
Okay.
This is good for you."
Yeah.
You know, I was showing an interest in faith and in religion.
Sometimes religious Jews will confront me. They'll say, you should go back to your roots first. If you
Yes.
don't go to the New Testament, go to your roots. And I'm like, well, I have. I've gone to the Tanakh.
Right.
And what they're meeting is the Talmud, right? And so I'm thinking, well, if we actually go to our roots, we go to the Tanakh. And you went there.
Right.
What did you find there that...
I found the same God. The same God was from page 1 to whatever page it ends on.
Right.
And I'll confess, I didn't understand a lot of what I was reading.
Yeah.
How could I?
Right.
It's 66 books, over 40 different authors, different genres of literature. Now
Right.
I know better looking in hindsight because I did end up learning as much about Judaism as Christianity. And when I went to university, I took classes in Jewish history, modern
Yeah.
Jewish history. I lived in Israel for a year. I lived on a religious kibbutz.
Right.
I worked in service for the people in Israel.
Wow.
It was a lifelong journey.
Wow,
But
let's have a seat.
It cemented my faith.
See, that's amazing because you've been
Yeah.
a believer in Jesus, a Jewish believer in Jesus for so long,
Yeah.
decades.
When you know the truth sets you free. That is the key.
Right.
And you can't argue with something that's real. And I'm not talking about just an experience, although it
Right.
was a very real experience
Yeah.
for me.
Okay.
All of a sudden I could feel the presence of God in a sure way, I guess is the way I will put it. Even though I didn't have the words
Yeah.
to describe that experience.
Well, I came to faith in Jesus having never read the Tanakh or the New
Okay.
Testament either.
Okay.
All I knew is that I was free from my torment, my
Yeah.
depression, my anxiety, my
Okay.
fear, and I didn't do it.
Yeah.
All I knew that I was free, and I had experiences that were related to Jesus, and I recognized who he was, having no background of him.
So you understand what a miracle is.
That's right. And the same miracle happened with you because not only did this happen to you at 12, it wasn't just a fad or a phase or peer pressure.
Oh, I tried to walk away.
Wow.
There was a
Talk about
time in university where I said, maybe I just convinced myself of this. And I tried to walk away from Jesus for almost 2 years. I decided I would take all the classes I could, world religions, cultural anthropology, I forget what other, philosophy. I took all the courses to kind of say, well, let me look at both sides, all sides of this equation.
Okay.
I went to Chabad, spent Shabbat with them.
Yeah, because that can be very convincing.
It could,
Yeah.
except that I couldn't get rid of Jesus in my life. I don't know how else to explain it. He wouldn't leave me alone. I just knew beyond a doubt that he was real, and he had given me a relationship and I will say this, it's like a peace inside that passes understanding. It doesn't matter what happens. Didn't matter that my parents got divorced. Didn't matter whatever was going on in my life. I felt like God had me.
Wow.
And I was his.
That's so beautiful.
And that's what happened.
What's the most difficult thing about your walk with Jesus as a Jewish woman?
Probably my own father's rejection of my faith.
Okay.
And especially after I'd lived in Israel, after I graduated university, and I felt like called to serve in professional ministry with Jews for Jesus. And he stopped speaking to me altogether. And that was very, very difficult. After my first child was born, we kind of reconciled. There were a lot of factors there, but he never confessed a belief in Yeshua. He read everything I gave him. He knew actually the New Testament better than a lot of believers that I meet. He would tell me, Laura, don't worry. Every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. He would quote the scriptures to me and say things like, why did Jesus come to turn father against child, father against son?
Right.
And I would explain these things to him, and he would read. He was a very brilliant man, my father. He's no longer with us. He was a doctor, and a very compassionate and good doctor. But he said he wouldn't be a Jew for Jesus. It was that strong pull for him. I don't know what happened, then none of us do.
Right.
But I think that's been one of the hardest struggles, I think. And then at times feeling like I'm cut off from my people.
What would you tell someone that's watching? They're Jewish, they're interested in Jesus, they're scared, but they're curious. What would you tell that person? What advice would you give them?
I would say, first of all, just ask God, if it's really true, show me. Because he's real and he does want to intervene in our lives. And it's hard for us often as Westerners. I'm originally American. It's hard to believe that the supernatural can touch the natural part of our lives. I think it's harder in a Western mindset than other mindsets, but I would say ask, first of all. If you read with open mind, open heart, open eyes, and continue that conversation. Because I think everyone comes from a different place. Some come from a cultural objection, some come from a religious objection, some come from not wanting to pay the price. It's already hard enough to be a Jew. Why would you want to add Jesus into the mix?
Right. That's a good point. I want to end with one more question. Have you ever seen religious Jews or even rabbis come to faith in Jesus?
Yes, I have.
You have?
I have. There's one woman that I met who said in the 1980s, she heard Hashem clearly tell her, one day you will know me and you will call me by my name. Took her more than 10 years to contact us online, anonymously, and said, he revealed his name to me and his name is Yeshua. Am I alone? And I've been connected with her ever since. It's been a long journey. She's a religious woman. She's still in her community, and that's okay. But we're having to support her because she wants to learn the Bris Chadashah, and she also wants to know that it connects with everything that she knows, and it does. But it's an issue of authority. I think that's the hardest thing. Because Rashi and the Talmud and a lot of what the rabbis say loom large.
Yes, they do.
But she's discovered a lot of other hidden followers of Jesus who are within the community. There are those out there. It's just very hard to say it publicly and come out of a culture that is your whole life, economically and everything.
Well, I'm so grateful that you would share your story like this. And I'm also blessed to hear about the work that you've done and what you've been able to witness through your decades of faith in Jesus, through the trials, as a Jewish woman, facing rejection, and facing some of the hardest criticism that we can receive as people. And so I appreciate you and your ministry. It touched my heart.